welcome to the Valley of Grace podcast, helping women reclaim their power, soul, and identity so they will know they are enough. And I've got a special guest with me today. Her name is Cinthia Hiett, and we're just going to start right off. First of all, I want to welcome her. Welcome, Cinthia. And
Thank you.
Yes, you're very, very welcome. And what I want to have you to do is just to start right on off with telling the audience your life story.
Okay, well, that's big. So, probably the highlight points of my life was I grew up in a Christian home. I was adopted, and I had been in foster care prior to being adopted. And so my parents had one child biologically. That's my older sister.
Okay.
And then they adopted me, and then they adopted another two more brothers. So there's four.
So 4 children total.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Wow. So in terms of, a lot of how my life happened was very odd, because the family that God put me in was a family that I have nothing like. So I don't like any of them at all.
Okay. Wow.
Yes, because my older sister is my parents' only biological child. She's very much like them. Then there's me, and then there's my brother. He's nothing. He's Black Irish. So
wow.
He's like black hair, dark eyes, very muscular. And so before I forget, I'll tell you a really funny story. Okay. Adopted people will really appreciate this. Okay. My brother and I went to Jack in the Box. We were probably in high school, maybe juniors in high school.
That's a restaurant, right?
Exactly, a fast food.
I remember seeing those. I'm trying to think, somewhere in the South, I want to say.
Yeah, South, in the Southwest too. Yeah. So we go to Jack in the Box, and we're going to order our food. And he walks up to the girl to order his food, and I see that he's like flirting with her. Okay. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. So I walk up and I say, excuse me, you're flirting with her. And my brother looks at me and goes, Cinthia, whatever. He goes, and I say, but I'm with you, and you're flirting with her. And so he looks at me, he looks at the girl he's flirting with. He goes, oh my gosh. He goes, I don't know what to tell you. This is my sister. I don't know why she's doing this. Right. And I say, your sister? Oh, today I'm your sister. Do I look like your sister? Oh my gosh, he was so mad at me. He has never.
Oh my word!
It was hilarious.
That sounds like it.
Yes, and so, but one of the issues growing up in this family is my parents had my older sister who was very much like them, and then they adopted me. Then they adopted my one brother, and then they adopted my youngest brother.
Oh, okay.
We look kind of like a motley crew. Nobody matches. Okay.
Isn't that something?
Yes. And so, there was some hardship for me because my parents were very educationally oriented. That was their whole deal. And they had education, and not really creative people, I would say. I mean, they can be creative in, how my mother would create a dissertation, or how my father, very famous engineer, he designed all the he has designed the Apollo rocket that keeps sending back pictures, so the electrical guru of the United States. And and so here I am, and the talents that God gave me are singing, dancing, drawing, all very artistic. So they don't know what to do with this artistic kid.
I was just thinking that as you were saying it, I'm thinking in my head, you've got these really educational people, and then they see that you're artistic rather.
Yes.
That's immediately like a little bit of tension there.
Well, yes, because artistic people, I tell people artistic people are like uncontained water. Okay.
Right.
They're not buttoned up real well.
No. Exactly.
So my parents were like, what about your education? What about your education? And I said, I don't need an education. I'm going to be a rock star. Okay.
Right.
That's every parent's dream. Right.
I'm quite sure it is.
So I started joining rock bands, and this is a very Christian home, and I'm in a rock band, and it's like, I know I'm smoking. Okay. And my parents are just like, what happened? You scored so high in intelligence when we had you tested. You're so intelligent, and this is what you're doing, And my father used to, when he would always say to me when I was playing the piano, can't you play a soft song? Can't you play a slow, soft song? And I'm like, what's the fun in that? So I'm pounding the piano.
Right. Oh,
I'm
for sure.
practicing I was a cheerleader, so I'm practicing my cheers in the living room, right?
Right.
And it's like, my poor parents are like, what about your education? And I'm like, I don't need an education. I'm going to be a rock star, So here we are at a crossroad. Well, I
And that
really
was like high school, probably, right?
all of high school. Yeah. So here I
Okay.
am going into college, and I'm like, I'm not interested in an education because I'm going to be a performer, right?
Right. Exactly.
But if I went away to school, then I would have a lot more freedom, right?
That's true.
So my parents said, well, there's like a fashion merchandising degree at Northern Arizona State University. Why don't you go there, right?
Okay.
So I go up there, I join a sorority, and a rock band. So
Exactly.
and so my parents' whole thing was, what about your education? What about your education? I'm like, I don't
Exactly.
need education, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so as things kept, kind of rolling forward, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I am very different than all the people that I'm around.
Right.
And I was diagnosed then with ADHD, which was a lifesaver for me.
Okay.
Yes, because
Wow.
now I understood why, if something doesn't grab my attention, I can't attend to it. It's boring to me, and so
Yes.
I told my parents about this diagnosis, and my dad said, that's why we bought you the trampoline.
Oh boy.
Because every night they're like, just go jump on the trampoline,
They would tell you to do that for a while.
Yes. And so, I get through school, and I fly off to California. I work for Saks Fifth Avenue. I work for Neiman Marcus. I work for all these different,
Right.
I'm hating it. Absolutely hating it. Now,
Mm.
every store that I had worked with when I started in Phoenix at Saks Fifth Avenue, then I went to California, worked for Robinson's May, and these are the buying offices. And I kept getting more and more depressed because I
Wow.
don't care how many red sweaters blew out of the Santa Monica store.
Right. That wasn't your thing.
Not at all. And so, I came home and I said to my parents, I don't know what to do. I can't do this. I can't do this job. So,
Right.
so what happened then was they said, well, there is a, fashion merchandising degree that maybe you could get. And so I thought, well, maybe I could do that. And I ended up doing that. And I thought, well, I love fashion, but retail never worked. Now, in the midst of all of this,
Right.
everybody would come and talk to me about their problems,
Huh.
all the way from the store manager, president, to pastors, to neighbors, to friends, to people at the grocery store.
Isn't that something?
And so my parents finally said to me, well, you have a degree, an undergraduate degree, why don't
Mm-hmm.
you get a counseling degree. And so here I am thinking to myself, more school,
Mm.
man. More
Okay.
school.
Yeah.
I'm miserable, right?
But you were miserable. Exactly.
And God had shut so many doors, and I was struggled so much with God. I would say to him, why did you make me like this? If I can't do the things that are the most supportive of me,
Right.
all these, artistic kinds of things, then I'm like, why did you make me like this? And so I
Mm.
came across a verse in the Bible, and it says, who are you, oh man, to talk back to God and say, why did you make me like this?
Mm.
Does the pot say to the potter, right?
Yes.
Be. So I came to, I had kind of reconciled myself with God, and as a Christian. And I thought, okay, God, now I understand it was a very humbling thing for me to go, well, I didn't design myself. Nobody, God didn't consult me when he made me.
Right.
So God was very clear with me about saying, Cinthia, I like how I made you. I thought you up. I was excited to create you.
Amen.
Don't like you, keep it to yourself.
Because I don't want to hear it.
Right, exactly. And usually God is really kind to me because I'm quite sensitive, right? He's like,
Right.
I don't want to hear it.
I don't want to hear it. Yeah.
Yes. So when I looked back, I started to recognize that everybody was always asking me about all kinds of questions. And why don't you go ask Cinthia? She probably knows, right? And so that's when, my parents were like, well, why don't you go and get a master's degree? And this is me. I mean, Katina, I'm like, more education.
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized when I went into the master's program,
Right.
that's what I was made to do. So I didn't mind the writing. I write all
right
kinds.
away. You knew.
Yes, it matched. It wasn't this like being put in a box and having to. It was like, this now is bringing words to what I already knew and I was doing for people. I just didn't know what I was doing. Now I have a title for, this is what therapists, counselors, anyone that offers that kind of help to people. That's right. And so, I went from barely graduating in, my undergrad degree to like summa cum laude. I was like, it was easy. It was easy.
As soon as you got into that program, because that's what you have been called to do.
That's right. And so it took me a long time to find that. And I didn't want to. And so one of the ways that it started this was I had a very bad eating disorder, very almost died from this eating disorder. And I was hospitalized several times. And the last time I was hospitalized, it's like, that's when God was saying to me, who are you to talk back to me?
Okay. So the eating disorder started when you were in college.
Yes.
Okay.
And so what happens is then I'm fighting with God and he was really not happy with me. That's when he's like, Cinthia, if you don't like how you're made, deal with it. I don't want to hear about it. And he's never kind to me, but he had been like, and that's where he gave me the verse of who are you to talk back to me?
Right.
I realized at that moment, I thought, we are created beings. How did I miss this? And so this is like an artist making a piece of artwork, and the artwork is saying, I don't like it.
Exactly.
And see, that's when I also realized how relational God was, that it hurt his feelings. Because he's like, I thought you up. I was excited to create you. I knew all the problems that were going to occur until you got to where you needed to be.
Exactly.
And I'm excited about you. And here you are complaining and totally disrespecting the creation that I made.
Wow. And the creation that he called very good in scripture.
Exactly. And so, that really started to sink in. And then what happened in this particular, this is probably my third time in the hospital with this, horrible disease.
Okay.
I would start to talk to all the clients and all the patients. And then all of a sudden the therapists were coming to me and saying, hey, can I run something by you?
While I'm a patient.
You're in there
to be treated.
Exactly.